Bart's the starting catcher. Like, we can agree on that, right? Because if we can't, the rest of this episode's going to be a little bit complicated. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. We're cool with this, right? Okay, Bart's the catcher. There's no way it wouldn't be Bart, regardless of what were to happen in spring training, because for maybe the billionth time, Bradenton produces numbers that can't be replicated in the regular season because Bradenton can't be replicated in the regular season. So Bart's the guy. And in full fairness and context and everything else, Ben Cherington and his staff did a wonderful job in recognizing that Bart's pedigree could have paid off. They were smart to acquire him from the Giants and offer a change of scenery, and Bart obviously did the rest. Good for them, good for him. Now, as a certain gentleman named Paul Harvey used to say many, many years ago, for the rest of the story. This is like, you can't say anything good about them without coming up with two things bad to say about them. And in this case, both of those things are catchers. Now, I'm not here to knock either Henry Davis or Endy Rodriguez, not as players, certainly not as people. And in fact, we've been over Henry so often that I don't know that we need to do it again. But when you're number one overall and you hit the cover off the ball at every level of the minors, and the only level that gives you any trouble, much less immense trouble, is the majors, there's something going on, in all likelihood related to development and or instruction. That's not universally true, but it's commonly true. And on a long list of stuff that either is going to get Cherington fired or should have already gotten him fired, Davis is high, because Cherington's fingers are in all portions of that pie, including the draft pick, including taking Davis over. Well, can I say this out loud? All right. I don't like doing this to anybody, but you're the one who pressed play and you're the one who follows this team. They could have had Jackson Merrill in the same draft. And no, I do not care that we all thought Davis was the right guy and nobody complained about Davis at the time. That's immaterial. What we think, me and you, immaterial. We're not paid to do the scouting, the research, the analytics, anything. We're not paid to do anything related to Davis's future. They are. And they could have had the brilliant rookie that the Padres had in 2024, who was so productive that he legitimately has challenged Paul Skeens for Rookie of the Year. There's no way he should win it, but his name and Skeens' name still will show up in almost equal terminologies whenever this is being discussed. So imagine not just having one Skeens, but two Skeens. Endy's a different story. Endy was the Pirates' number one prospect, meaning within their own organization, for the time before he was promoted. That was to his credit. That was also, as long as I'm trying to keep this even-keeled, to the credit of Cherington for getting Endy in the trade, the three-way trade that brought David Bednar from the Padres and ultimately got Endy in from the Mets. And all Endy did from the instant he was added to this organization was hit. Until, right, he made it to Pittsburgh, couldn't hit. And then, of course, he ends up getting hurt, the elbow injury from throwing in a winter ball, which I really don't understand why he was playing after a very, very long season between the minors and majors in 2023. Separate subject for a separate day. It's been discussed many times that Endy could switch positions. That was back when it was just between him and Henry. And then Bart comes along, and now it looks like either of the two kids is going to have a really tough time cracking significant plate appearances or significant time behind the plate, or maybe one will get moved out, or maybe both will get moved out, or maybe neither of them will hit well enough to deserve being moved to anywhere other than the bench or to another organization that maybe has hitting instruction. I do know this much. If Bart gets the plate appearances that he deserves based on his offensive production with the Pirates, that basically means that he'll play on Friday and Saturday, and someone else will play on Sunday, if you're following me here. He'll play Tuesday and Wednesday nights. He'll get off the Thursday matinee. As such, logic would dictate, if you extrapolate this, he'll end up with 2/3 of the plate appearances that you have allotted to your catcher position. In which case, neither of the kids is going to... Wow, I know, right? When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Chris, and it's in reference to the show I did earlier in the week, congratulating Matt Arnold of the Brewers for winning Executive of the Year after he was the one turned down by Bob Nutting and Travis Williams in favor of Ben Cherington for the Pirates GM post. Chris asks, DK, do we have any insight, and I'm sorry if you reported it at any point and I forget, as to why Nutting and Williams chose Cherington? On one hand, it was good that they had Arnold in the running as one of the two finalists, but it sure would be interesting to note what factor made Cherington the choice. Was it how he responded to budget and other limitations? I was waiting for something like that. Was it philosophy on roster construction, or, go for it versus a long window? Or did they just go with their gut and get it really, really wrong? At the time that those two chose Cherington, I was in a glass room, and I share a glass room only because it's just such an amazing room right there inside the Pirates headquarters, just a palatial place. It really is. And it's a glass conference room with a giant table and everything else. Anyway, I'm sitting in there it was Nutting, Williams, and Cherington. So no matter how I was going to ask, and I recall that I did, why did you take this guy instead of the other guy, especially when I had just written a column the previous week advocating for the choice to be Arnold? I'm sure all three of them were aware of that. No matter how that goes to them, they're not in a position, and by this I mean physically, all three of them sitting on the same side of the table, I'm on the other, where one of them is going to say, well, the reason we hired this guy and not that other guy, Arnold wasn't going to come up. That's not a class thing to do. If I were to ask about Arnold, they should still answer the question in a way that never invokes Arnold. And I do remember that, to their credit, they did avoid mentioning him. And what they did say about hiring Cherington and why they did it was they appreciated his history of organization building. They appreciated the scope of the presentation that was made, the process. They loved mentioning time and time again the World Series ring in Boston, never mind how much or how little he would have had to do with that. And they did mention organizational skills and planning and so forth. What I think, and boy, would they never have said this in a million years, I think that Nutting saw a continuation of Neil Huntington. Now, yes, I get it. He just fired Huntington, but he fired Huntington after 12 years on the job. So having employed Huntington for 12 years, one would think that there's a lot of association that he'd have in his head between this is how a GM looks, acts, sounds. And I think everyone who follows this team would agree that there are striking similarities between Huntington and Cherington and always have been. In fact, in that column that I wrote advocating for Arnold, one of the things that I wrote in there was that I really wasn't eager to see Huntington Part 2 and that Cherington reminded me too much of him as it was. So that's as close as I'm going to come to giving you any kind of answer on this. I've not ever heard with my own ears Nuttington speak about Arnold or the decision or anything like that. But that's the best I've got. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Pirates. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.